Hello and welcome to For Fox's Sake. This is the preview and we have got a full house for you this evening. Rob Hayes, Pete Selby, Tom, Jono and Joe are with us as well. 5 people want to talk about Leicester City, 2 of whom were live on For Fox's Sake yesterday talking about Leicester City. Either we've all got really, really boring lives or Leicester City are giving us plenty to talk about. Now, if you want the For Fox's Sake reaction to the dismal trip to Wrexham in midweek, you're on the wrong show. You need to go back to our YouTube channel, For Fox's Sake Live, and you need to find yesterday's show with Pete and Tom, and they'll unpick a lot more. And we'll get in a little bit into how the podcast has influenced Pete Selby today. We'll let him tell that story himself in a second. Just a reminder for those of you who aren't aware yet, forfoxsake.news is our website. We are just over 3 weeks old, the website. £5 a month to subscribe, the price of a pint or a glass of reasonable tasting wine. And on that, you get me, Pete, Andy Moore, and other fans as well. Jono's contributed an article. Joe's article is going live or has gone live today. You get our opinion on pretty much everything happening with Leicester City. You get loads of stuff with former players. Where are they now? Andy Moore digging into his contacts book. And there is a new one going on very, very soon with Darren Kenton, who makes a couple of very interesting claims about his time at Leicester City. So I would advise you to have a read of that for foxsake.news. Also, plenty of coverage of the women's team as well with Lily, our host of the For Fox's Sake women's football show. And Leicester signed Alicia Lehman today, which will help things on the pitch, certainly, but also in terms of raising the profile of the club and having eyes on the club. She is one of the most followed female footballers in the world on social media. And Lily's put together a piece on that, which will be live on forfoxsake.news within the next hour. So forfoxsake.news for everything around the club. Also, if you subscribe for £5 a month, that allows us to keep these podcasts running and keep these podcasts running for free. So, Leicester versus Oxford. Back to the King Power for the first time in almost 3 weeks. Let's start with the preview question, shall we? And we'll go in a clockwise direction as I can see it, and those of you that are watching live can see it. Very, very briefly to start with, and we'll get into the crux of why a little bit later on. But Pete Selby, are you feeling optimistic or pessimistic about this weekend's visit of Oxford United?
I am optimistic. Hello, everyone. I'm optimistic about Oxford, as I mentioned yesterday. And I'm optimistic due to, I think, there will be wholesale changes, plenty of youth on the field, probably more because we haven't really got our first 11 available. And also, we're playing against a side who I think Leicester will enjoy plenty of possession against. And yes, they might be difficult to break down, but I think the youth may be able to unpick a very belligerent and also a very defensive Oxford United. But more on that as we go through.
Tom, are you bringing optimism or pessimism to the table this evening?
Well, I feel like I got a lot of pessimism off my chest yesterday, so I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic about the state of things. Having done some research about Oxford, though, I still think we're in for a tough game. So we'll see, but I'm feeling a little bit better.
Joe, positive, negative?
You know, when you get those surveys that say, like, I strongly agree or I strongly disagree, and in the middle is I neither agree nor disagree. I am neither positive nor negative. I am just, I don't know what I am. I'm just on a level with Leicester City at the moment. So that's where I am.
And Jono, for those who are listening back to this in its pure, simple podcast form, Jono's tagline says it's all gone to, and then one of those brown swirly emojis with the eyes. So go on.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of that, I probably am still relatively optimistic for the weekend, for getting a result. Being back at home, hopefully with no more boycott action this weekend, we'll be back hopefully to full strength in the stadium. And albeit not at full strength on the pitch probably, but hopefully we'll have enough to get a result. But I don't think it'll be an easy ride. I think, but I'm hopeful that we'll get back to winning ways. We'll see.
So your little tagline about it's all gone to poo is mainly about it's mainly a wider issue, but actually you still think that we can get a result on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, none of us can sit and pretend it's all hunky dory, can we? Ultimately, it's all pretty much in the toilet mostly this season, but we can only sit here and hope that we get as many points as we can. That's ultimately what we're trying to do this season. I think I've given up any hope of any playoff action. I was actually optimistic before the Coventry and Wrexham game, if we got positive results at both, that we could slowly make a push towards the playoffs. But those two games have really cemented my opinion that we're just not going to do that this season. We're just going to hopefully avoid the drop.
Some pessimism coming in on the comments already for those watching live. Andy Moore for Fox's sake saying at best a draw, expecting a loss, and this will finish Marty off. So some pessimism from our For Fox's sake colleague Andy Moore there. Blue Fox Forever saying, evening everyone, trying hard to feel optimistic, but the roller coaster is struggling to stay on the tracks. Well, that's why there's 5 of us here and plenty of you watching along live. Because the Leicester City roller coaster keeps on having twists, turns, ups, and let's be honest, plenty of downs. Before we get into looking at how we might line up in terms of a starting 11, Pete, I think you need to share with the viewers and the listeners how listening to For Fox's Sake yourself, an episode that you hosted, has actually managed to change your opinion on Leicester City.
Yeah, it might. I'm going to say it might not sound as bonkers as it does, but I think it actually does. To be perfectly honest, yeah, I do listen back to all of the shows and the shows that I'm on and the shows that I host and the opinions that I say, etc., etc. And I listen back because you can listen on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. So I listen in the car, and I was listening, and I do have that kind of out of body experience with it because I do listen back, and I don't think that's me. I kind of listen back as a kind of a neutral, like the first time I've heard this. And I was listening back to what I was saying about Marty Cifuentes and my argument for keeping him, because we're going to possibly get a big points deduction. And if we get the points deduction, Marty at the moment has us mid-table, and that sort of form would possibly just lever us away from the relegation zone, which ultimately would be the end goal. And if we need to change him, then we can change him then, okay, or in the future. But if we change him now, then possibly Andy King comes in, and if that doesn't work out, then we're in a whole world of bother. 9 points get added on, taken off us, and then we're just trying to find a firefighter who can keep us up, and then it reeks of desperation. So that was my argument, essentially, and I was listening back to it. I was driving along, and I was thinking, no, that does make sense. But I may have changed my own mind less than 24 hours later. So listening back to myself, I was arguing kind of against myself, going, I've kind of come around to what Tom really was saying, and I think it's got to the stage where we should make the change, and I've kind of reasoned with it because to come to that conclusion, because I just think that we have a poor squad and we have a poor first team, but I think we have certain players who should be playing better than they are. We have a squad that's more than talented to pull away from a relegation dogfight, and also I think that's maybe that change would instill a bit of fight, which is what we need in a relegation dogfight, rather than what Marty is bringing to the party at the moment, whatever that is. So yeah, I've kind of slightly changed my tune from yesterday. I've talked myself round after listening to myself from an independent point of view. That might sound crazy. It probably is.
If you've got absolutely no idea what Pete is banging on about, then please do go back to For Fox's Sake live on YouTube and watch back yesterday evening's show with him and Tom, because that might help you make sense of what Pete's just said over the last minute or so. Let's look at where there might be some gaping holes in the team. And we've got a couple of positions to consider, but I think the one that is the most pressing one is the likely absence of hands down our best player this season so far, Jordan James. Felt something in the hamstring early on against Wrexham on Tuesday night, and continued for most of the first half. But he's obviously he's our top scorer. He's the only one who looks like he's actually bothered about trying, apart from Oliver Skip alongside him, who is also there's doubts over his fitness for the weekend, given him being sandwiched between two Wrexham players. So, Tom, let's come to you first. What would you let's assume worst case scenario? There's no James and no Skip. What does the centre of midfield look like for you on Saturday afternoon?
Well, I think Pete more or less convinced me with his suggestion yesterday about playing Ricardo in the middle of the pitch. I think we need some kind of level of quality in there. I had completely forgotten that Skip had actually gone off, so that's a concern. But for me, I think we need to potentially pop Hamza in midfield. If we could stick someone like a Louis Page in there as well at some point, I think that'd start to look good. But the second we start moving players like Hamza and Ricardo into midfield, well, what do we do about the fullback position? I don't really know how we start patching these holes. It's starting to feel a little bit like we're going to start to see plenty of youth coming to the side just through sheer necessity, because we are starting to scratch the surface of a squad that's very, very threadbare at the minute.
We are. Joe, I know you're a massive fan of a certain midfielder who is back from injury and appeared in the last couple of minutes against Wrexham, a certain Boubakary Samari. Is he coming into your side on Saturday?
First name on the team sheet, Rob. Yeah, stick him up front, mate. Yeah.
He can't be any worse up front, can he?
Well, you said we did the preview last week, and you said to me, "Oh, we're definitely not going to see him, are we?" And I said, "Don't be too sure about that. He'll pop on towards the end. Hopefully, just being in the shop window." But no, I'm not playing Samari. I'm playing Louis Page, which I believe is more of his natural position, as a substitute for Jordan James, one of the JJs. Yeah, that's the way I would be thinking. I'd be starting him with Bobby Reed up front. Aluko can come into the team. I wouldn't really be wanting to put. Sorry, Tom, but I wouldn't be wanting to put Ricky P into midfield at the start of the season. I thought that was a possibility. As the season goes on, I'm not sure there's many possibilities with Ricky P anymore. Sad to say, but that's the way it goes. He hasn't been great. He was pretty shocking against Wrexham. So I'm not moving any of those guys out. I might even be tempted to play Hamza right back. But Louis Page for me, I think. Samari, against Oxford, there's no reason why we shouldn't win against Oxford. So, yeah, chuck him on. On paper, that seems fine. But we all know that we're not really a team on paper this season, are we? God knows what we are, but we're definitely not getting the results that we should do. So, Louis Page for me.
Jono, any advance on that? I guess it's a difficult question, as the guys have alluded to there, because a lot of the potential options in midfield then lighten things at fullback, which is another problem position.
Yeah, in terms of centre midfield, we're so threadbare. If those two are out, I think it has to be Page and probably Samari as the first two, maybe Hamza as well. I would actually think about, regarding the fullback position, if it was me in Marty's shoes, potentially look at a different system, maybe three at the back. We've got some centre backs. I don't see why Nelson, Vestergaard, and Nicoli couldn't play, as a back three. Or at least give it a go. That then gives you the option of Pereira in midfield potentially. So I don't know. Is frankly the answer. I whatever whatever he puts out, we just need to see players applying themselves. And I think if we'd see that, and I've said it millions of times this season, then I think we've probably got enough to win against Oxford, you would hope. But it's all about the application. It's regardless of the setup and the tactics and all that. That can only take you so far. I think you've got to have players that actually want to play and actually apply themselves properly. And if we have that, which occasionally we have seen that this season, then that's half the battle, or more than half the battle, in my view.
Yeah, I think on that note, if you're looking for players like that, Samara is probably not your choice. Like, if he has to play out of necessity, fine. But someone like Louis Page absolutely is, and Pete will bring you into this conversation. I think Aluko got kind of thrown into the fire against Southampton and got himself sent off. But then he played perfectly well against Cheltenham. Okay, League Two side. But then if you look at this game on Saturday, you think, right, Oxford are a League One side, really. That they're highly likely to get relegated. They're 23rd in the table. They don't have a huge amount of quality. So it is kind of like playing a League One side. If there's ever a championship game to start him in, or to bring him back in, it's a couple of games after he did well against Cheltenham, and it's against one of the weakest sides in the division, surely. And Aluko coming in at fullback, then whichever way you want to lean in terms of Chowdhury or Ricardo coming into midfield, it frees one of them up, Pete.
It does. I slightly differ to bringing him in. I'm looking at Leeds United. I'm looking at Wolves. I'm looking at West Ham in their little bit of a upturn, and also Ipswich in our league. And what they all done, they've all gone three at the back. And I just look at the fact that we play three centre halves against Wrexham with Nelson at fullback, and it's that old adage in my column on for Fox8.news regarding Marty Cifuentes in his first 6 months. He's absolutely belligerent in playing that 4-2-3-1. Doesn't matter who's fit and who's available. Doesn't matter that we have to play a centre half at left back. That shouldn't be the case. I think for this game, if Leicester are going to change formation, if they're going to try something different, home against Oxford is that time. And I think it cries out for three at the back, because we've got problems at fullback. Solve that by not playing fullbacks. You've got three centre halves. Play them. If one gets injured, you can move back to a back four. Not a problem. And what that does then, it frees up your two available fullbacks. One of them isn't Hamza Chowdhury, and the other one, Ricardo Pereira. We were saying, Tom, yesterday, the fact that I think his time at fullback is over. What you can do, you can move them into midfield. All of a sudden, you need an extra midfielder. You've got one. If you want to play Samara, you can do. And if you want to play Page, which I think you should do, he has two other centre midfielders with him to give him a bit of space, give him a bit of a cushion behind, so he can go and do his stuff further forward. What it does mean, though, it means that he'll have to play another player, two further players further forward. One more than likely will have to stretch the defence, and then one can sit slightly deeper. Cordova-Reid and Patson Daka are the two kind of perfect players for that formation. So I think the 3-5-2 is something that we should try, and we should try and look at other sides who have done it and change their fortunes around. But also, I think we should do it because out of pure necessity. And if you're going to do it at home. If you're going to do it against the side who are more than likely going to sit in and try and defend after they've drawn their last two games 0-0 with their new manager. I think it's the perfect opportunity, and it gives a good cushion again for Page to play in midfield and to show his stuff.
Yeah, not going to happen though, is it? Picking up on Jono's point from a little bit earlier on, Tony Smith has said playing a team where our monthly wage bill is 80% of their annual bill shows what bad contracts we have issued, and I think that kind of links to the fact that Jono said there, if you can play whatever shape, whatever system you like, but ultimately if the players can't be bothered or they've got nothing to play for, they're still taking home their ridiculously high wages, a lot of them. What does it matter to them whether they win, lose or draw? And Andy of Fox 8 joining in the conversation in central midfield, saying put Ricky P back to right back, Hamza and Skip in the middle. Skip if he's not concussed. Page most effective off the bench still. So those are Andy's thoughts. I think one other positional conversation that we will have, and this comes off the back of something that Andy Moore has written on for Fox8.news. Andy and I always sort of top and tail a fixture on our website with me considering 5 things to look out for quite often as a sort of reaction piece to this very podcast. And then Andy's job is to sort of unpick the 5 key things that we've learned, or 5 things that we could consider retrospectively after we've watched the game. And one of the points that he makes, I won't give you all 5 because that would mean you wouldn't have to go to the website for fox8.news and have a look, but he makes a point, and it's one that's come up on the show a few times before, that we're not necessarily singling out Jakub Stolarczyk as the reason that we are in our current difficulties, but he hasn't looked the most confident. I wouldn't say that the Wrexham goal was exclusively his fault, but he could probably have done a little bit better, and that is been a bit of a recurring theme. So Tom, I'll bring you in on this one first. Andy is saying bring Begovic in to try to limit the number of errors and add to the amount of experience on the pitch. Tom, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, prior to Wrexham, I probably would have erred on the side of giving Jakub a continued run, a run in the side. But I do think that it's got to the point now where, I don't know if you call them errors, but certainly moments where he's palming the ball back into play, back into dangerous areas, and not coming necessarily to collect every cross. That concerns me. And whilst I don't think the defensive frailties are by any means exclusively his responsibility, I would like to see a bit more experience at the back there to help solidify things. I've got a stat here that actually says, Rob, that Leicester City is the team with the longest run in the entire championship that hasn't kept a clean sheet, which is pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Is that ever? Is that of all time?
Sorry, I think the wording here is a bit weird for the stat, but it says the current longest run without a clean sheet amongst the 24 clubs in the tournament. And I did a quick search online, and I believe that's the case for all of the 5 leagues. So it's pretty
top of one stats pile.
Yeah, it's not a good stat if it's correct. But I will just pick up on one thing that Jono mentioned before, and that's the fight element to this side and to this team. A month ago, Oxford were winless in 4 games, and their fans were displaying banners saying passion and fight is not optional. And I think we're in the exact same place. I think if we don't bring that as a team, we can talk about changing the keeper, but this whole side needs to start putting in a shift that understands the seriousness of the moment.
I think we can also think that there's a lot of fans' energy going into King Power Out. And I know there's talk of potentially another boycott on Saturday of people staying in the concourse for the first 14 minutes. Now, I don't know how much traction that has gathered in comparison to the original one. It's the same organisers, but it would be interesting, Tom, and this is a conversation for another show, but it would be very interesting if the Leicester fans actually decided to display more signage towards the players. Now, we're all very much aware of the fact that the issues at the club are wide-ranging and do come from the top down, but there are still a group of 15, 16 players that are running about in a Leicester kit who are not giving, or do not come across as the fact that they're giving as much as they should be to a team and to a fan base that is still forking out to go and watch them. We've had a comment in from Buzzer who says, I'm going to the Oxford game and I already regret it. Good to have a fellow Aussie on the show. I'm glad we're bringing that positive vibe for you this evening, Buzzer, but thank you very much for tuning in. Yeah, so I mean that's the one. Joe, you were shaking your head when Tom was agreeing with Andy on the Begovic situation. Have you got a different stance on the goalkeeper?
I think I got a different stance to most points, really. To be honest, having
a falling out this evening, you and Tom.
Yeah. I genuinely, Tom, I always enjoy hearing what Tom's got to say, but apparently I'm enjoying disagreeing with him tonight. But I think it's very easy to say that, and I've said it to my son when what did Begovic do? Two games for us, 3 games for us. I mean, he did all right, but he didn't cover himself in glory, and there's a reason why. You know, he's had the sort of career that he's had, and I don't really feel like we can just like I'm watching the same game as everyone else. I can see Jakob being a bit shaky for sure. But I think if we're going to apply it to the outfield players, then we need to apply it to the goalkeeper as well, which is keep playing the youth and give them the time and everything else. He's young for a goalkeeper, and I'm a bit surprised that I'm defending him really, because I have sat there and said he's not convincing at all. But I don't think the answer is an old goalkeeper at the back. I mean, if we had another guy to really push him, I'd be sat here saying, yeah, let's play the other guy. Apparently we do, but none of us know his name, do we? Does anyone know the other goalkeeper's name?
Yeah, but nobody's seen him. I'm not convinced
he exists. Yeah. And also, I genuinely think that I've heard a lot on For Fox's Sake recently that Rob, I heard you on one of the podcasts saying that the general vibe at For Fox's Sake was it's not really time to protest or boycott or anything like that. I think seems like I'm the odd one out, because I think good on anyone who boycotts the Oxford match or who stays in the concourse. The fact of the matter is that you can keep asking nicely for a long time. I think that the situation's got to the point where action is needed. And without getting too deep on it, history tells you that if you go and protest, it's the only way you can get the people at the top to listen to you. You don't get it by asking nicely, and you don't get it by sitting in your seats. I've got no problem with anyone who wants to go and watch the match and have a nice, normal night out and go and watch the football, and that's what they want to do. I've got no problem with that at all. But I still do think that the people, if anyone's going to boycott, they're going to stay. Anyone who's going to take action has got my respect, put it like that. I'm all up for it. And if I lived anywhere near Leicester, I would be there. But I'm not driving 3 hours to then boycott the first 14 minutes, I'm afraid. So it's not going to happen. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Can I just chime in there? Because
go on, John.
was a few things that you said there that kind of relate to what I was saying in the article I wrote the other week about the boycott. And at that moment in time, I was very much of the opinion that boycotting isn't the thing to be doing right now, and to give Top and the club the opportunity to reset and get everything in place. And I actually said in the article that the 2 checkpoints I'd be looking for as a fan is the end of January, have any movement, any positive movement happened, i.e. players out and players in, and then towards the end of the season, whether we've actually got a structure in place. Now that first checkpoint is coming up rapidly, and I am very much of the opinion that if we see absolutely nothing happening in January, and then I think that I would be moving towards the position of boycotting. I'm not there yet, is kind of what I'm saying. I can understand the reasoning for doing it right now, and I can understand the people that are really frustrated, as we all are, with the way that things are carrying on. I just don't feel I'm quite there yet.
Have you ever thought of going into politics, Jono?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're sitting on the fence real nicely there, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Accuse me of that. That's no problem at all. But I don't know why I feel that way. There were, some news that there was some movement in terms of getting a director of football in and all of that stuff a few weeks ago, giving me some hope that something's going on. But I think a checkpoint at the end of January, if at the end of January nothing's happened, i.e. players leaving and someone coming in up front, I think is an absolute must. If we haven't got those things, then I feel like I'm moving in that direction, absolutely. And then if results continue to downturn and then we get a points deduction, all of that stuff, then I feel like I'll be in that position. But right now, if there's a boycott for the first 14 minutes, I probably won't participate in that, although I do absolutely empathise with the people that want to do that.
We're all entitled to our own opinions here. For Fox sake, is a platform for people to share those. Not only fans that are watching and listening, but actually the people that we have in the conversation on the podcasts as well. So it's nice actually. Quite often we all get along and we're all very friendly. I mean, we're still friends, but we've had some contrasting opinions tonight. I like it. We have got really one other order of business, and that is to give our predictions for Leicester Oxford on Saturday. We'll take it back to the actual 90-ish minute football match on the pitch. If you're watching along live, you have got a moment or two to get your predictions in, just while we have a look at what people are saying in the comments about the boycott. For Fox's sake, Andy Moore, I know his stance on Marty Cifuentes has changed in the last week or so. He's now more leaning towards the Marty out camp. He's also saying that he's considering joining in the boycott, and Tony's saying top spin on a boycott for many weeks. So you're not.
I think that's a fair point. Absolutely fair.
Yeah.
Well,
So let's go around and take some predictions then in terms of scoreline. Is predominantly the order of the day, but also what kind of game are we expecting, and is anybody gonna stand out for Leicester? Pete, we'll start with you. Prediction time.
Well, I hope the Leicester player will stand out. I hope it's Page, because then we can maybe see him for the rest of the season. I think it'll be an ideal game in the Matt Elliott derby for Leicester and Oxford. It's interesting actually, because when it comes to players who played for both sides, I instantly, of course, go back to the mid early 90s, and I had David Oldfield and of course Matt Elliott, 1.6 million, 97, all that. And I completely forgot about Ben Nelson, but there you go. I think Leicester are going to win. I think hopefully they go 3 at the back. It gives Page a bit more of a cushion in midfield, as I've said before. And maybe we can get into a position where maybe Monga can come on and again show what he can do against maybe lesser opposition. I've said it twice, I think, so far this season about Cifuentes, saying that if he does lose the next game, then I think he will be probably ready to go, or ready to be pushed out the door. And he then turned it around with some good performances. And we went and won at Derby, and we had a little bit of upturn in form. And then it happened after that as well, with a few decent performances, with the 70-yard goal, etc. I think if we lose to Oxford, then it could be curtains. I think that's the case. And because then a new coach can come in, hopefully with a couple of new players, etc. That's a conversation for later on. I'm going to go for a Leicester win, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory, because we are not going to keep a clean sheet. But I believe that we are just fundamentally a side of better players against a side who I think are going to be quite defensive. They shouldn't be. They should do what Wrexham did to us. They should just be in our faces and also really attack us at the start. I don't think they will, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 win. But if we do lose,
Marty's gone. Tom, your prediction for Saturday?
Well, I'm going to keep on the theme of the pod, and I'm going to disagree with Pete. I can't see it going well. I just am concerned about the level of fight. I'm concerned about the new manager bounce that Oxford's going to bring. And after all of our chats over the last half an hour, I've kind of started to turn. I'm thinking, we are light. I don't think it's going to go our way. So I'm going to say a 2-1 loss, unfortunately.
Wow.
Oh, we don't get many defeats predicted on, for fuck's sake. Tom's gone in there. Joe, how are we feeling about Saturday, prediction-wise?
I think the match is going to be very much like Marty Cifuentes. If he was a meal deal, he'd be a ham sandwich, ready salted crisps, and a bottle of water. As a manager, I think this game will be exactly the same. I think it'll be another what we saw against Wrexham. I really feel like that's probably what we're going to get for the rest of the season. If they dig in deep, we've just lost our main goal scorer. And so I don't really know who's going to score the goals, apart from the wingers might come up with a bit of magic. So I don't know, 1-1, I'd say.
So we've had a win, a loss, and a draw so far. Jono, what are you thinking?
A 1-1 at home is like the ultimate average meal deal result, isn't it?
especially against Oxford, who are 23rd in the table.
Yeah, that's about. I think a draw would actually be probably more disappointing and probably more frustrating than a loss, to be honest. Because I echo the thoughts that if we do lose, then Marty absolutely should be packing his bags. He's been, on a, living by a thread for so long, and he just keeps on bringing it back by getting the result here and there just to stem the tide, I suppose, of the chop. But I do question whether, even if we lost, whether the club would sack him. That's how incompetent I think that they are up there. Going back on what I just said earlier about a boycott, but I do think that there's problems up there, and I don't think that he would get sacked if we lost, because I don't think there's anyone else that would take the job apart from maybe Andy King, and that is a bit of a gamble, a gamble that I might actually relish seeing. But I think we will scramble a win, 2-1. If you're asking me for my opinion, I don't think it will be pretty. I don't think it'll be easy. I think it will probably be, a real struggle, but we'll end up probably just about nicking it. And then keeping Marty in a job, rightly or wrongly. For the people who want Marty out, it's not going to help that opinion. But I think we'll just about sneak it.
Sneak a win and Cifuentes survives another week is what Jono's predicting. Let's have a look at what people that are watching along live are saying. Tony's saying it's going to be a 1-0 bore fest. I'm assuming, Tony, that's leaning towards a boring Leicester win.
That's a clean sheet. That's really, that's quite.
It does start, yeah. A clean sheet would be far from boring for Leicester. Andy Moore saying 2-0 Oxford. Oh, he's really in a negative hole. We should have found a sixth space in this window to get him on to bring some of this negativity to the screen. But I mean, he's done it with his comments, hasn't he? Let's be fair. Blue Fox Forever saying should be a Leicester win, but going for a 1-1 draw. Yeah, I think it should be a comfortable Leicester win in most of the situations, but right now that is not the case. And Richard Houston, I won't pop your comment up because it's got a swear word in it, and we don't want people to inadvertently see swear words if they don't like them. But his prediction is another poo show, no sacking. Says heard from Vestergaard today that the club is not a nice place to be at the minute, and the away fans turning was the final straw.
Well,
I'm
the smallest violin in the world for him. Getting paid £80 a week. It's not a nice place to be. No sympathy whatsoever. Get your
a regular violin would look small to him, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I'm gonna finish with my my prediction. Because Oxford, since they got the new manager Bloomfield, who got sacked by Luton earlier on in the season, so they hired a manager that got sacked in League One to try and keep them in the Championship. That's the kind of level of opponent we're looking at on Saturday. Since he's come in, he's presided over 2 0-0 draws. So I'm going for a hat-trick of 0-0 draws in a row for Oxford United, which will give Leicester City a clean sheet. And that, I'm doing it. So of the 5 of us here, we've predicted, 2 of us have predicted wins, albeit not convincingly, really. Pete's scoreline more convincing than necessarily the performances expected. 2 draws and 1 defeat. That is the opinion of the 5 of us here on the preview this evening.
That kind of reflects the fact that no one really knows what.
We've got no idea what's going to turn up.
Maybe we should be seeing that as a positive, that actually, we just have no idea. It's a mixed bag. It's like I don't know. It's just an absolute lottery, isn't it?
Well, it's got to the point. It's got to the point where I'm arguing against myself, thinking that, and talking to myself on yesterday's podcast, thinking it's a different person, and then coming out with a different point of view 24 hours later. Look what Leicester has done to me. Look what for fuck's sake has done to me. It doesn't matter about the players. Don't worry about Cifuentes. Worry about the fans. The effect it's having on the fans. It's made me go completely mad in the last 24 hours. Stay tuned for what happens next week, sports fans. Anything could happen.
anything could. And I think on that note, as we tick just past the 40-minute mark, that we'll wrap up the preview there. Thank you very much to Pete, Tom, Jono, and Joe for joining us this evening. Thank you to everybody that's commented live as well, and thank you if you're watching back or listening back at a later date. Fingers crossed. We've gone for 4 out of the 5 of us are planning to pick up at least a point against Oxford at home on Saturday. Just one more reminder, for foxake.news is our website for lots more on this kind of chat, these opinions. And I'm sure Andy will be looking very carefully at more work on the boycott. There will be a piece within the next half an hour on foxake.news about Leicester City women's new signing, Alicia Lehman. So the fans of the women's team can get some content there as well. Pete's next instalment of Leicester's top 100 players is coming very soon. Andy Moore spoke to Darren Kenton, former Fox, recently. That's on its way. So loads of stuff there for foxake.news, just a £5 a month. And we'd really appreciate your support with that, because it also enables us to keep these podcasts going and keep them going for free. So thank you very much to those of you that have watched along this evening. Thank you to those of you that have subscribed already. For foxake.news is the website. Fingers crossed for a positive performance and result on Saturday.